We've chosen Primalock Plus. It's a very simple click-together system and it's got a built-in underlay, so you don't have to lay a separate foam underlay. Very easy.
Pretty well anybody can do it. All you need is a few basic items. You need some poly sheeting and duct tape, some tapping blocks and a hammer, small crowbar, straight edge, set square and pencil, a string line, some spacers and a saw.
We've laid and taped the polythene, but before we run it right up to the door, I'm going to mark and undercut the door frame. So you use a piece of the Primalock Plus and just mark it like so. Once you've checked that the walls are true, you can begin laying the floor. Use 10mm spacer blocks to allow for an expansion gap between the floor and the walls.
Moisten the tongue of each board with a damp cloth to reactivate the adhesive.
Once you've laid a few rows, use a tapping block and a hammer to gently close the gap between the rows. When you mark an end board to cut it, you just have to note that that fits over the tongue that's down here. So to mark it, turn it through 180 degrees. When marking where to cut the end pieces, remember to place a 10mm spacer at the end of the board. Then use your set square to mark it. There you go, Dean. There you go.
Rightio.
Thank you. Use offcuts that are more than 400mm long to start the next row and stagger the joints.
These are fabulous. They give you a nice clean cut and they're a lot of fun to play with. But this is going to do just as good a job. Just make sure that if you're using a handsaw that you cut down from the top so that you don't splinter the bit that you're going to see. Here we go, David.
Thank you very much, and there's another one for you. Okay, when you've got the end piece cut, slip it into position. You put your block in and use a small pinch bar or crowbar just to close the gap. Then you can tap it from the side. Use the tapping block to close the gap between boards every second or third row. It's important to do this progressively as you add more rows. Using this system, the average room will take less than half a day to lay. Well, we've finished our test room floor and it looks great. We've tightened it up all around the edges with the crowbar. Now the next thing to do is take out the spacer blocks and lay the skirting, which Dean's going to do. Once the boards are laid and gaps closed, you can remove the spacers. It's all yours.
No worries. Well, David had the foresight to number all these skirting boards, so the plugs in the wall, the dowels line up properly. All we have to really do is drill the holes down at a slightly different angle to compensate for the difference in height.
When we removed the skirtings, the wooden dowels stayed firmly in place in the wall. So Dean is able to reuse the existing nail holes by drilling through them and adjusting the angle to allow for the new floor height. After the nails go in, Dean carefully centre punches so that we can come back later and hide the nail heads with a jarrah-coloured wood filler. The skirtings fit snugly back into position without any extra holes being drilled in our beautiful jarrah. That's great, Dean. Well, the test room is complete. The floor's down. It looks great. The colours are terrific. We'll probably add a few more to the rest of the house. So now all there is left to do is...
everything else.
Yeah. So why don't you do that and I'll make a couple of calls.